Plymouth Rock. It might surprise you to learn that today, it's only about the size of one of Lady Liberty's toenails. But few things loom as large in the American imagination. For centuries, it's been the symbol of freedom and granite-like resolve. This is the improbable story of how a homely lump of granite became an American symbol, but not before it was nearly lost to souvenir hounds. Back in 1620, Plymouth Rock was like the king of Muscle Beach, a massive hunk of granite, unscarred skin rippling like a bodybuilder's and harder than concrete. It was the biggest thing around. Actually, it was the only landmark on the otherwise featureless shoreline.
There's a land that is fairer than day.
On December 11th, 1620, the Mayflower landed at or near this rock. It became one of the most momentous occasions in American history. For 102 forefathers, only later were they called pilgrims, it signaled an end to persecution and the beginning of limitless opportunity. If the pilgrims noticed the rock at the time, nobody recorded it, nor did they pay it much mind for the next 120 years. Then, in the 1740s, town fathers proposed to build a large earthen wharf at Plymouth, right over the rock. One old-timer, 95-year-old Thomas Faunce, objected.
And he had himself carried down to the rock and wept and carried on and said that his father had told him that the forefathers, when they came ashore, had stepped on this rock. And that's the start.
The wharf was built anyway, and Plymouth Rock was buried up to its top surface, but it wasn't forgotten. In 1774, a wild spirit of rebellion was sweeping through the land. The local patriots decided to unearth Plymouth Rock and move it to a place of honor in the town square, alongside the Liberty Pole. They hitched dozens of oxen to the boulder. But the first pull broke Plymouth Rock right in half. A disaster for the rock, but not necessarily for the patriots.
And they thought that was wonderful. That's symbolic of breaking away peacefully from the mother country. So they took the upper half, leaving the lower half propped up on poles in its original site. They took the upper half and moved it up to town square near the Liberty Pole.
The colonies didn't exactly break away peacefully, and Plymouth Rock, now in less than prime condition, would suffer a few more indignities.
People wanted to come and see it. When they wanted to see it, they wanted to take a souvenir. And with a hammer and a cold chisel, you could do that very well. And so pieces of Plymouth Rock began to spread across the country.
Those souvenir hunters often turned around and peddled pieces of the rock for $1.50 each. More often, it was the buyer who was chiseled. Random pebbles were often pawned off as authentic relics. There was a grain of truth in this. After all, any stone from the area was still a Plymouth Rock. But the once formidable boulder was now not much more than a 98-pound weakling, getting sand kicked in its face by other bigger American symbols, such as the Statue of Liberty. Finally, in 1880, the two halves of Plymouth Rock were reunited at the waterfront. A stone enclosure was built to keep the souvenir hounds at bay. The boulder was at last preserved from further shrinkage. And in 1921, 300 years after the Mayflower landing, Plymouth Rock finally got a worthy setting. This portico, with its many colonnades, is a magnificent example of the Beaux-Arts style. But some have said the flamboyant edifice dwarfs the little boulder it contains. Certainly, few modern tourists are overwhelmed by its size. But despite our reputation, Americans don't always think bigger is better. We root for that 98-pound weakling, and of course, for that tiny band of 102 that landed at or near this rock.
There's something about that humble group of people that really appeals to our democratic sensibilities. They were humble, seekers of truth, seekers for immortality.
Maybe Plymouth Rock is just the right size for an American symbol after all. Plymouth Rock, inside its stone portico, draws over